The legal system has been completely trashed in the United States in the most disgraceful and disgusting conviction ever recorded in US history. And that is the completely unwarranted conviction of Donald Trump, in my opinion. James.
This case here and these 34 counts, everybody needs to understand what is happening here. So essentially what this all goes back to is 2016 and 2015, and Donald Trump had basically paid off through his lawyers an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, to silence Stormy Daniels, who he says he didn't have sex with, she said they did. Who cares? That doesn't matter. Now, the point is, this non-disclosure agreement, this is the sort of thing politicians do all the time. Bill Clinton did it with Paula Jones. This has happened time and time again. So what happened? Well, this was a bookkeeping error, and there's a 2-year statute of limitations. It's not a felony. Alvin Bragg, the district attorney who ran for office, because you run for the office there on a platform of saying, I've sued Trump before, I want to get Trump, I'm going to get Trump, that's why you should vote for me. He created this whole novel legal theory. No one's ever had this happen before, where he connected this misdemeanor bookkeeping thing, which is very similar to what happens all the time, to election law, and said, oh, well, this was an attempt to defraud the electorate, to tell, to hide the truth from them, and thus interfere with our democracy. Now, of course, this was all nonsense. It was complete nonsense. Yet the jury was given instructions by a judge who had given money to the Democrats, whose daughter is on the payroll of the Democrats, to give the jury instructions that basically said there's no way out. You have to find him guilty. There are so many ways that this is going to appeal and be appealed, and Trump will probably win. But the problem is, this isn't going to happen until after the election.
Oh, hell no!
This is a disgrace.
He ain't lying.
Well, it's also a disgrace for the simple reason that the crime was never spelt out. This is communist-style, Soviet-style show trials where the crime is never spelt out.
Well, hello folks, it's Victor, your friendly neighborhood watchman, with you today to talk about that joke of a trial that was just completed in Manhattan, New York, at least until the appeal comes in. But make no mistake, folks, the Democrats have done what they set out to do, which was to find Trump guilty on all these trumped-up charges before the election. It could hang over him. Now, despite what these morons have been saying, like, for example, the hyenas on The View or on MSNBC, Trump is not a convicted felon. That comes when a judge makes his ruling in July, and it should be overturned on appeal. But, like I said, this will happen, if it does, long after the election has been over with. But let us hope this continues to have negative impact against the Democrats. But without further ado, let's jump into this article from the National Review with the byline from James Lynch with the heading, Trump found guilty on all counts in hush money trial. By the way, an NDA is not against the law. Former President Donald Trump was convicted on Thursday by a New York jury on 34 charges for falsifying business records, making him the first former president in U.S. history to be convicted of a trumped-up crime. Trump sat sullenly looking down at the table before him as the verdict was read Thursday afternoon, bringing an end, for the time being, to a weeks-long trial that dominated headlines and led to a historically corrupt conviction that will be wielded against a presumptive GOP nominee throughout the rest of his 2024 campaign. As to my point earlier, addressing reporters outside the courthouse after the circus trial let out, Trump called the proceedings rigged and vowed to pursue an appeal to rectify what he sees, what anybody sees, that's not blinded by hate, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, or partisanship. We will fight for our Constitution. This is far from over, Trump said. Over the past 6 weeks at the state courthouse in Lower Manhattan, the corrupt prosecution sought to demonstrate that Trump, his former fixer and current liar and criminal attorney Michael Cohen, and National Enquirer publisher David Pecker participated in a conspiracy to defraud voters ahead of the 2016 presidential election by paying off women to conceal embarrassing stories about the then presidential candidate's sexual history, without properly recording those payments as campaign finance expenses, which they were not. His affairs were years ago, before he ran for office, and unlike Bill Clinton and other past presidents, he did not have affairs while in office, and worse, in the White House, like Bill Clinton and some others. Trump's defense team, meanwhile, countered that the hush money payment to Daniels and a catch-and-kill scheme carried out by Pecker did not qualify as campaign expenses and were unrelated to Trump's political ambitions. They made it seem that because Cohen had been found guilty of criminal behavior, that Trump had to be as well, that he committed campaign violation, which he did not. And the main witness, whose testimony was going to support that, was kept from giving his statement to the court by this judge, that witness being Robert Costello. You even had someone from CNN looking at what they gave the jurors to read, which was 65 pages, and which that person, I forget her name, was a legal analyst. I'm assuming she's a lawyer, so she's familiar with these proceedings. And even she said she couldn't understand all of it. So how do you expect laymen and women to understand? And the jury could not take those pages in the deliberation room. They were not allowed to take those pages with them. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure they were biased against Trump anyway. But then you intentionally get them completely lost, and the judge shows them the only way out, which led to the conviction of former President Donald Trump. The judge's thumb was heavily on the scale, and to deny that is to deny your cognitive ability to understand the obvious. The jury began deliberating on Wednesday of last month after receiving instructions from the corrupt Judge Juan Merchan about the relevant legal definitions and considerations. The case is complicated by the fact that the prosecution was tasked with proving that Trump falsified business records in order to conceal an underlying crime, which they argue was a conspiracy to defraud the American people, which is complete and utter bullshit. Merchan set the sentencing hearing for July 11th, 4 days before the Republican National Convention begins. What a coincidence, isn't it?
Daddy, chill.
Trump faces up to 4 years in prison.
Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no.
The most legal observers agree that he will more than likely be placed on probation. Merchan will be able to dictate the terms of Trump's sentence, and his decision could have a major impact on Trump's ability to campaign. Let the bastard try, please. The ability to brand Trump a convicted felon will likely become a central feature of corrupt and senile President Joe Biden's re-election campaign. But it remains to be seen whether Trump's charges will resonate deeply with voters. Man, it's ironic, isn't it? If anyone should be convicted of felonies, it's Joe Biden and half of his family. You know, there's millions they've been getting from China and Ukraine and Moscow. But I digress. Daniels alleges she and Trump had a sexual encounter in 2006, a claim Trump denies. She testified during the trial and gave graphic detail of alleged sexual intercourse between the two, and which has nothing to do with the case whatsoever. Stormy Daniels was brought in just to embarrass and prejudice the jury against Trump, as if they weren't already. Cohen is a disbarred former attorney who pled guilty to financial crimes and perjury, and he was the prosecution's star witness against Trump, who lied all the way through it too. New York State Prosecutor Bragg once said he would never put on trial. Cohen implicated Trump in the plan to pay off Daniels and reimburse him through a series of payments classified as legal expenses. The defense cast doubt on Cohen's credibility given his history of lies and prominent turn against his old boss. At one point during his cross-examination, Cohen admitted to stealing funds from the Trump from the Trump organization. Boy, this circus of a trial is just beyond the pale. This dude stole from Trump. He hates Trump because Trump didn't give him a position in his administration after winning the 2016 election. The trial's first witness, former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker, testified about an agreement between himself, Cohen, and Trump to help the Trump campaign by killing negative stories. Prosecutors portrayed the, quote, catch and kill, end quote, arrangement and a Daniels payment as an effort by Trump to suppress damaging information during the 2016 election cycle. Ain't that rich? Any damaging information suppressed was done during the 2020 election cycle regarding Hunter Biden's laptop and suppressed by government agencies and their all too willing partners through social media, like Twitter, as it was referred to at the time. And it's unfortunate that Elon Musk did not own Twitter, aka X, during that time, so that the truth would not have been suppressed. But nothing can be done about that now. That's history. To continue, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and his team of equally corrupt prosecutors pursued the case against Trump in front of Judge Merchant. The prosecution relied on an expansive legal theory to expand the business record charges to felonies, arguing the falsifications were used to cover up alleged campaign finance crimes, namely hush money payments designed to help Trump's electoral prospects. However, those federal campaign finance crimes are not being pursued by federal prosecutors for obvious reasons. There was no, quote, there, end quote. And the prosecution did not discuss the underlying crimes until the closing argument took place on that Tuesday. So get this, President Trump, the defendant, did not have any idea what he was being officially charged of until closing arguments, the last day of the trial. Let that sink in. Number one, the NDA isn't a crime, but what happened to Trump, essentially, statute of limitations in Hunter Biden's case was adhered to, but with Donald Trump it wasn't. Bragg is an elected Democrat, no shit.
Duh.
And Merchant previously donated to the Biden campaign, which is why he should have recused himself. He never should have been placed as a presiding judge on this case. Not to mention his daughter, a donation to a party or candidate is not allowed. And he was supposedly admonished by the New York State judicial system for all the good that did. One of Bragg's prosecutors previously received payments from the Democratic National Committee. Surprise! And another donated to the Biden campaign. Yeah. Can we say bias? Similarly, Merchant's daughter is a Democratic strategist whose clients have fundraised off the Trump prosecution. You cannot make this shit up. But this is fair, right, Joe? Right?
Indictment of your predecessor politically divisive.
You lying sack of shit.
Daddy, chill.
Throughout the trial, Trump and his Republican allies accused Bragg and Merchant of waging a political prosecution against him to interfere in the 2024 election, just like they did in 2020. Merchant's gag order limited Trump's ability to criticize certain individuals connected to the criminal trial and was a violation of his constitutional rights. And with that, folks, we've come to the end of this article and thus the video. If you agree that this trial was a clown show put on by corrupt and crooked Democrat supporters, then please hit that like button. Feel free to comment if you wish to share your thoughts, and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and for shame if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you'll be forewarned whenever I'm about to drop another video. And as always, stay safe, and I bid you peace.